Hey everybody, welcome to Drive Thru Review 231. Today we're going to talk about Eldritch Horror, which is a new release from Fantasy Flight Games. This is kind of a sequel or a redo of Arkham Horror, which I have not played, so I'm kind of going into this with sort of fresh eyes, if you will. You know, I played a lot of co-ops, Defenders of the Realm, kind of most strikes me of this, not really, but kind of, you know, Pandemic and different ones like that. So basically it's a Cthulhu mythos, H.P. Lovecraft, lots of sort of chaotic demons and things coming out of the netherworld, if you will. And each player, it takes on an investigator. Now it does play 1 to 8 players. And the neat thing about it is if your investigator dies, then you can get a new one and keep playing. And actually there's some other really cool things about that part, the whole death thing. So it's a co-op, and there's different old ones that you can get and play against, and there's different decks of cards that are going to go with each old one, and there's different decks of cards that'll go with different locations and events and stuff on the board. And so basically you're traveling around a world map trying to sort of tamp down uprisings of monsters and all kinds of different things, collect clues and beef up your guy, and then go and hopefully solve different mysteries to prevent the old one from appearing. And it's possible that the old one will still appear. You'll still have to kill off or complete the mysteries, and then do a sort of a final mystery to get rid of the old one. So let's take a quick look at how it plays, and I'll come back and tell you what I think. Okay, you can see the game board here, and it's actually a pretty good sized game board. I had to sort of zoom out a little bit here. It's basically a map of the world. There's different locations. You can see there's Rome, Istanbul, some different cities, some different sort of wilderness areas. You've also got these locations here. So you've got, you know, wilderness and cities, and then sea locations. And you've got different routes. So most of the time you're going to be using one of your many investigators, which are these really cool standees here. These are actually really high quality, nicely done. So you're going to have these guys out on the board, be traveling to different locations, solving mysteries, you know, going on explorations, having encounters, fighting monsters, all that good stuff. You can see there's different routes here. So you've got sort of unexplored wilderness type routes, you've got ship routes. You can see these red ones here are basically train tracks. That'll come into play. I'll explain that a little bit in a second. So the first thing you're going to do is pick which one of the old ones you want to do battle with, so to speak. And this is sort of the beginner one. I actually think it's probably too easy. I would almost recommend, if you're familiar with games or if you played Arkham Horror, maybe to skip this guy and then play one of these other guys who seem to be much harder. So I don't know if it's the swinginess of the game or if these guys are actually that much harder. Now each of these comes with a deck of cards. Some of them come with multiple decks that you have to do, and they'll have basically just different encounters and just sort of a different nature to the game based on which of these you choose. Now you can see here you have a number at the top there. If we look up here at the top, we can see there's the Doom track, and that's actually showing you where you're going to start, and then it's going to move down through different events and things that happens down to 0. Now when it hits 0, what you're going to do is actually flip this sucker over and then do whatever the effect is. Well, for the easy one, basically when you do that, the investigators lose the game. So when you play your beginning scenario, you just don't want that to hit 0 or else you lose. Now others of these will have different effects and things that happen, and maybe other mysteries that you're going to want to be solving. Now mysteries are made up of a deck of cards that is specific to that particular old one, and so normally you're going to have to solve like 3 mysteries, and then you're going to start the game with one of these randomly, in this case of 4, put up, and then you're going to have to basically do whatever the condition is. Once you solve that mystery, you're going to flip up another one and then have to solve that one, and so on. So each of these guys has their own mystery, and they have their own little exploration deck here, and some of them have their own special encounter decks that you'll have to deal with. And so speaking of decks of cards, there are several different decks of cards that you're going to be laying across the board. I'm not going to do it here just in terms of space. I have a good sized dining room table, and this definitely takes up quite a bit of room. You can see all the other components here. You got some small decks of cards, some clue tokens. All of these will be face down. You actually be putting these out on these different little intersection parts of the board, or even in the cities there. And then you've got a whole mess of different tokens, some travel tickets and things like that. So there's like a ship travel ticket. And then you have these really cool you know, health tokens that look like little hearts, and then basically the sanity tokens here that are like little brains. Then you've got some Eldritch tokens here, some monsters, some gates, and then some epic monsters here. So you've got like a zombie horde there. And then these guys are going to be a little bit harder to defeat. And this is really where kind of the teamwork will come in. Because most of the time you're going to be kind of doing your own thing a little bit. But then some of these are a little bit harder to kill. So you kind of have to sort of double up on them. So let's talk about how the game's going to work roughly, and then I'll kind of get into more what I think about it. So each player is going to choose an investigator to start the game, and then you've got different stats here. So if we take a look at the main stats along the bottom here, basically these are the tests that you're going to do, and this is how many dice you're going to roll for each of the different tests. So if you do a strength test, you roll 3 dice, and for the most part 5 or 6 will equal 1 success. So if you had a strength test and you needed to have 2 successes or something like that, then you would need to roll 2 5s or 6s on 3 dice roll. Now you get other cards, you get different equipment cards here that you can purchase during the game. Some of the investigators will start with one of these, so you just dig that out of there. You also have spells which you can get in the game, and some investigators start with these, and then you get these out here. These are actually kind of interesting. And then sometimes you'll get these conditions too. You don't start with these, but I'm just showing you these now. So sometimes there'll be good conditions or bad conditions like amnesia. You really want to get blessing as a knight, or blessed, because you can actually succeed on 4 5s and 6s. So that's actually pretty cool. So you're going to get these. Sometimes they'll have an action on there that you can do as part of your action phase. So once these are selected, then you can start playing the game. So one interesting aspect of the game is it actually comes with a rule book and a reference guide. And this actually works really well in this case. The rule book is not too long. It's really about 10 pages of rules with some extra goodies in there. And then you've got the reference guide. Very easy to digest how the game plays. It plays really straightforward and simply. And then certain things, like if you want to see how an encounter works, or try to remember how a mythos card works, or what the omens mean, or things like that, you can just whip this up. There's a nice index in the back. And so the game really, you can really get into this very quickly. And so I wouldn't definitely not be intimidated by sort of the size of the game and all the pieces and things. It's very easy to digest this. I digested it in about 20 minutes. And then, and then I just used this while we were playing. So very cool little handy thing. You don't usually see this. In most board games, a lot of war games, you'll see this kind of thing, but really cool. So the turn's broken down in basically 3 phases. You've got the action phase. You get 2 actions. You cannot repeat the same action. A couple different things, I'll talk about that. And then based on kind of where you're at, what tokens are on the board, you're going to have to do some encounters. So you basically will encounter different monsters. If you're on a spot with monsters, you have to encounter all the monsters there, and then you can go ahead and maybe, if you want to, encounter some other stuff on there. If there are no monsters, then you have to do at least 1 encounter off of the space that you're on. When you resolve encounters, you're going to basically choose from different decks. So like if there was a gate token here out on the spot, you could choose to resolve the gate effect. Or if you're in certain areas here, they have decks that go with different areas. So this one is kind of the eastern side of the map here. You can flip one of these and then resolve that. After the encounter phase, then you're going to go into the mythos phase. And so there is a large deck of these mythos cards, and you can see we've got yellow ones and green ones and blue ones here. So based on the old one that you have encountered here, you're going to set up some different decks of cards. So you're going to have, in this case, 0 green ones, 2 yellow ones, 2 blue ones, and then shuffle those up. And then underneath that, you'll have a mix of these, shuffle those up. Underneath those, you'll have a mix of these, and then shuffle those up. Now you can tailor the difficulty here. You can see this little illustration there, and then this one here. These are considered sort of more difficult cards, and these are easier difficulty cards. And you've got ones without it, which are sort of a medium difficulty. But what you're going to do is you're going to flip one of these up, and then you're going to walk down the icons here, and these are going to do different things based on sort of basically the color of the card. And then you also may do some event text and things like that. And some of these, especially if they have this little red icon there, are going to actually trigger a bunch of stuff on the board. So it may kind of activate monsters or different things on the board, or even actually trigger some of your conditions. So for example, we have the amnesia condition here. And so basically you get this condition earlier in the game, and then you can see this one here. So anything that has this little icon here, you're going to want to scan basically the board and everywhere else for these. And then in this case, you're going to do sort of a will test, and if you fail, you're going to flip the card and then do whatever it says. Now, there are different amnesia cards. So when you go to pull an amnesia card, you're not really sure what the consequence of the condition is going to be, and that is basically the case for all of these different conditions. So you're going to shuffle these up. I have them in alphabetical order because you're basically just going to dig through and grab these. And it's similar with the spells. If you use the spell activity here, like if you did this for an action, you'd maybe flip that card, and then based on whatever the result was of the test you did on the other side, you maybe get it back, or the spell didn't go off as quite as good as you wanted, and things like that. So that is kind of a cool, interesting thing. Kind of reminds me of Robinson Crusoe, where you have sort of a cause and then maybe a later effect. Kind of interesting. So as I said, you're basically trying to solve the different mysteries here. And so we're always going to start with one mystery here. Some of them will do something when they enter play, put some tokens out on the board, and then maybe you'll get some clue tokens and you'll gather those from different locations, trying to sort of figure out the mystery of whatever this card is related to that old one. And then you'll solve a mystery and then go on to the next one. So real quickly, I just want to show you these reference cards. You can see, based on the number of players, some of the more basic core activities of the game are going to scale, based on the number of players. So if you have 3 players, whenever you spawn a gate, you get that spawn gate action, you're going to put 1 out. But if you have 5, you're going to put 2 out. And if you do a monster surge, which basically is going to spawn the gates, or spawn monsters at a gate, based on where the omen token is, you'll do 2, and you'll still do 2 with 3. If it tells you to spawn clues, and these clues here will come out, some of these will come out at the start of the game, and you'll spawn that many clues, and this is actually going to tell you, where to put it. So this will go on space 10, which is over here, right here, there. So these will come out, and these are going to be little encounters that you can have, and these are sort of tied to whatever old one is. So you think of it, you're kind of gathering clues, trying to figure out, who's trying to bring this old one, into the world here and basically destroy it. So let's just go through all the different actions you can do, and then I'll talk a little bit about the encounters, and then also the Mythos phase in more detail, so what you can kind of expect to happen out here. So the first thing you can do is travel, and remember, you can never take the same action twice. So you can always just travel basically one link on your route. Now if you have a travel ticket, you can see a ship ticket and a train ticket. Then in addition to that first space, you can go an additional space if you have the right kind of ticket. You can never have more than 2 tickets in your supply. So if I just moved here, I could discard that ship ticket and then go ahead and move down here, or possibly further down the board. And then you got the little red train tracks. So it's feasible if I were to, let's say, move here, then I could discard a train ticket and then move down here or up to San Francisco. So another action that you can take is you can actually prepare. So you can basically acquire a travel ticket. Now you can only acquire tickets that have a matching adjacent route. So in San Francisco you could collect either, because there's ship routes and train routes going into them. But if there were only train routes or only ship routes going in there, you can only get that matching ticket. Now the next thing you can do is you can try to acquire one of these assets here, and there's a deck of asset cards here. And what you're going to do is you're going to do an influence test. So you're going to roll, basically in this case, 2 die, and then you're going to add up the number of successes and then be able to purchase cards up to that amount. So here, if we had 2 successes, we could get our lucky cigarette case, which once per round you may add 1 to the result of one of your die. Or let's say we had rolled a 3, we could get the lucky cigarettes, and we could get this revolver, which will give us +2 strength during a combat encounter. So basically you do that. If you can't acquire anything, then you can just discard a card and then draw a new one off the top, and then after you're done acquiring cards otherwise, you can draw cards to replace those. Next you can rest, and basically you just sort of refresh 1 health and 1 sanity, up to your max there. And again, I really like these tokens. I always like some of these creative tokens Fantasy Flight does. So there you go, rest. Next you can trade. If you're in the same spot as somebody else, you guys can trade possessions, items, and things like that. And then finally, you will have actions on the different cards, like I said before. So for one of your 2 actions, you can take the action there, or sometimes as a spell, you can do an action here. So we can do a test here, and then you can do different things, and cast spells and helpful spells on other people. And again, when you do this, you're going to have to flip the card and then see basically how good you did. If you didn't do so great, you're going to lose sanity. But if you got like a 2+ on your roll here, then you're going to be good to go. So those are the actions that you're going to be doing. Basically, those are geared towards sort of beefing up your guy, sort of getting positioned, and then after everybody's done their 2 actions, based on where you're at, then you're going to have to be doing the encounters. So if you are on a spot that has any monsters, you have to encounter each of these monsters before you do any other types of encounters. And so you can see here we've got some different monsters that have come out. Now anytime you put a gate out, then you're going to spawn a monster. There may be other cards that spawn monsters, you may get ambushed, something like that. So if we take a look at these monster tokens here, we can see that these guys actually have effects that may be triggered during the Mythos phase, because remember that icon there does that. And then on the other side we have basically 2 stats. And we have sort of a will test and a strength test. Now, not all monsters will have all of these, but basically you have to do whatever the test is, and you're going to roll basically the amount of dice that you have for that ability here. So in this case, you've got a will test of 1, not so good because this is a will test -1, so that's going to subtract the number of dice that you're going to roll. And then we got here strength -1, whereas this one will just be, you know, whatever your will is. And again, you'll get cards and spells and items and things that increase the roll that you're supposed to do. Now, this icon here is showing you the number of successes that you need. So if you don't roll that many successes, so let's say we're fighting this guy here and we only rolled 1 success of 5 or 6, then we're actually going to take 1 damage. Or in the case of this, if we're under the number of successes, then we're going to lose 1 sanity there. What you're really trying to do here is do damage to it. So this is the amount of health that the monster has. So it may take more than 1 battle to kill off these zombies. And you go ahead and just mark these with a damage marker, and then somebody else can go and encounter them on their turn. Or even if they were here, maybe one person goes first, does the encounter with the monster, and then the other guy does the encounter there. Now you don't have to defeat the monster to go through all of the different encounters. You just have to actually have an encounter with each monster, and then you can do the next encounter if you wish. And then the next player will go, they'll do the encounter with any monsters that are there, and then they'll have any regular card encounters after that. So let's talk about some of the different types of encounter cards. So you've got encounter decks for some of the different regions there. So I said you got the purple ones there on the right side of the board. You can see you've got the 3 red areas there. So if this folk here was up there and he wanted to do an encounter there, then he would flip up a card matching that, and you're going to see where he's at. So currently he's in Rome, so we take a look at the Rome text here and then basically act that out. And I just realized this is in the wrong spot. I just put a gate there just as an example, but that should be in London there. There is a generic encounter deck here, so you can see that there's a city icon, a wilderness icon, and a sea icon. So she's not in a city or anything, but she's here. And so we would flip this over, and then we take a look at the wilderness icon there. If she were in a city over there, then we take a look at the city like so. You basically resolve that. You probably take some damage or find some cool artifact or something like that. Now there is an expedition token that will kind of move around. It's kind of an interesting mechanic here. So at the start of the game you have this expedition deck here, and you can see there's these different sort of iconographic ideas here. So we've got this little temple, we've got the pyramids there, and so at the beginning of the game you're going to take a look here, and then you're going to see, okay, well, where does the expedition marker go? It's going to go over here to the Himalayas, so that would be where it is. So if you want to go there, then you can go here and then resolve this. And now this is part of our sort of, I think they call these complex things. So you're going to kind of do this. Then if you succeed at this test up here, you're going to do this one, maybe do another test. If you fail at this test, it's going to get a little bit worse for you there, and you have to go through this test there. Once this is resolved, we're going to take a look at the next card, so in this case the pyramids, and then you can go through here. Now with this deck, this is where you're going to gain the artifacts, and these are the really cool items here that are sort of named, Glass of Mortland, Lightning Gun, Silver Key, all kinds of cool stuff. So this is primarily where you're going to get these cards from. Expedition. Now here you've got your gate token here, and this is where you're going to go through this sort of otherworldly cards. You're going to sort of teleport into wherever that gate was, and then you're going to resolve the encounter. It's similar to the other one where you have sort of your basic, and then if you do okay, you get a little bit easier time and then a harder time there. And then I'll talk about gates in a minute, but you want to keep these closed because it's possible that they'll start spewing out more monsters, above and beyond the one they brought with them. Now there's going to be clue tokens also out on the board, and these are going to be directly tied into the old one that you're fighting. So there's a special deck of cards here, based on the old one that you picked, and these are a lot of times they're going to interact with the mystery card that you're trying to solve. Remember, you're trying to solve 3 of those, so there's a special deck for each of those. And then sometimes there is another deck, sort of a special encounter deck, based with the old one, and there'll be these tokens that get on the board, and then even the ones that don't have a special encounter deck, I should say, will sort of base on this. So you're going to put these on different boards, or maybe mark different cards with these, so there maybe be some kind of special event that's sort of a subplot, if you will, above and beyond your basic plot, and you're going to want to go and take care of that, or else it'll basically reduce the doom track a lot, things like that. Now, one last encounter you can have is you can have an encounter with a dead or insane investigator. So if your health or insanity goes below 0, you're going to mark them with either this. So if they go insane, you're going to mark them here, move them to the nearest city, or if they die, you're going to mark them with a little heart there, move them to the nearest city. Now the backs of all of these guys here have 2 encounters on them. So if they die, you're going to do this one. If they go insane, you're going to do this one. And then you may be able to recover all the items that they had and different other things that are going to happen there. And then whoever died, whoever was controlling that investigator, will go ahead and draw a new one out of the start here. And then you're going to put them at the starting location, get their starting equipment and all that stuff. So you get to keep playing, and you can actually recover some of the stuff that they had. So after everybody's moved around, done their actions, resolved their encounters, then we're going to go to the Mythos phase, where basically Cthulhu kind of fights back. Now there's a lot of different events and things that are going to happen here. I'll go over kind of what these icons are. A lot of that is going to basically be based off of going down the Doom track here, as well as looking at the Omen track, which I'll show you in a second. And like I said, there's going to be other events and things. So basically this icon means you're going to rotate the Omen track. So you can see here we have the Omen track with 3 different symbols. So it's going to always kind of move clockwise here anytime you see the symbol on the Mythos card there to rotate. Any gates that you have out on the board that match whatever the current token is, when you hit that, then you're going to move the Doom track marker down for each of those that match that. So you can kind of see what's coming up and what gates are out there, so you maybe want to go take care of some of those gates so you don't move down the Doom track so much. And then like I said, anything that's out on the board, your conditions, the monsters, are going to trigger their effect based on this icon here. This icon is going to spawn new gates, and as I said, that's based on the number of players. So with a 3-player game, you're going to spawn 1 gate. Remember, those come with a monster. You may also have here a monster surge, and so here you may have monster surges of 2. And basically you're going to look at the gates that match the current Omen, and then you're going to spawn that many monsters outside of that gate. You may also spawn the clue tokens like I talked about. You kind of want these to spawn because you can go and counter these. It'll help you along with your mystery. And then finally we have these 2 icons here. This one may tell you to put a rumor token on a particular space, and then it also may or may not tell you to put a certain number of these Eldritch tokens on the card. So these are kind of sort of like little mini events that are going to happen in the game that you kind of want to deal with and hopefully don't fail at, because a lot of times it'll move the Doom token down. They might spin the Omen track. You might start removing clues. It'll spawn some of these epic monsters here. All kinds of things that are going to happen there. You really want to kind of tamp these down out of the game. So that's pretty much the game. You're kind of chasing everything around the board, trying to get some items, and go on cool little adventures that'll give you cool artifacts, and try to do all this stuff to stop the old ones from destroying the world. Okay, I hope you enjoyed the overview. This game started off really shaky for me. Now, the first time we played it, it was really easy, and we were playing the intro stuff. It was still really swingy within there. We had a couple of really quick deaths with the investigators, and then we kind of got things rolling, and everything just kind of fell into our lap based on some of the different encounters that happened, and we really didn't have to worry too much. And everything kind of really felt disjointed. Like I was kind of going into this expecting a lot of sort of rich narrative story, and it wasn't really happening for me in the first game. So I kind of was like ready to just kind of toss the thing away and be like, well, this isn't really my thing. But then we played again, and we played with a harder a guy, and we got our butts handed to us, and it kind of felt interesting because it was almost like each game doesn't really have sort of a a joined narrative that everything kind of flows together, because some of the events and stuff, they kind of make sense. Like you'll have like a time rift or a dimensional rift, and then some of the stuff that you do kind of really fit. So we had like moments of it that were really connected. But when we were playing the second game of it, then it was like, oh, okay, so this kind of feels more like the stories will go from game to game. And like I said, I haven't played Arkham Horror, so I don't know if it's, that's how that is or anything. But I was kind of, I don't know why, I don't really know what I was expecting exactly. I was expecting sort of like a more narrative, themey, whatever, Defenders of the Realm. I don't know how to explain it. It's like Defenders of the Realm with more story, less mechanics, less strategy, whatever. But so within a single game session, I didn't really feel that. But I think playing through more of the encounter cards and becoming a little bit more familiar with the mythos a little bit. I'm not really familiar with Lovecraft stuff at all, but in playing some of the against the different old ones, then it kind of started to arise for me, and you get more of the variety, more of the mix, and the things just kind of play out differently. Now, strategy-wise, it's pretty light on that. You're going to be kind of moving around, rolling dice, and then whatever. You can roll 5 dice, if you get some bonus abilities, and then whiff them all. And then your guy's going to take like 6 damage and a shotgun blast to the head. Or you're like, what? I thought this guy was really powerful and strong because he's got all these dice rolls and special abilities and stuff. But now he's dead. So that's actually kind of funny. And I think that's really kind of part of the game. And I do like it when, because I played it and I had the game handed to us and I was like, that wasn't that really interesting. And it was actually over pretty quickly. It was probably like an hour and a half or so. And the game box does say 2 to 4 hours. I could totally see this going the 4-hour side. Now, that being said, with the game ending quickly, it wasn't like one of those sort of aborted type of pandemic plays, which I kind of have as a reference of, sometimes a co-op will just stack itself. Well, in pandemic, it stacks itself against you if it ends quickly. Usually in a co-op, if it ends quickly, that means you lost. But that one particular game, maybe that was an anomaly too. So anyway, the things I really like about it, I like the sort of cause and effect of the events. I like that there's kind of the multi-use on the cards, the conditions and the encounters and things like that. So even if you get that same encounter card, in another game, then, you're not going to necessarily, have the same reaction to it and things like that. Now, it does feel like each of the decks is a little bit light. Because there's different encounter decks for the different locations and the expedition decks and things like that. For some reason, it kind of feels like there's not that many. So maybe, obviously they've expanded Arkham Horror like 1,000,000 times. They could totally do that with that. I don't want to say I feel like I've been cheated or ripped off by the amount of components or anything like that, or the amount of stuff, because there's a ton of stuff in here and everything is like top notch. Fantasy Flight just goes above, and I cannot get over the health and the sanity tokens. I don't know, I really like those. They're like really cute. I don't know how else to explain it. But they do feel light to me. It does feel like, you're going to play this maybe 5 or 6 times and you're going to see like a good chunk of the stuff, and I would kind of expect, and maybe it's a misplaced expectation because I think this is kind of more of a streamlined Arkham Horror, but I would kind of expect there to be a little bit more to this. I would say like double the size of all the decks. Every single deck, even the mystery cards, because the basic guy, I think most of them have only 4 mysteries. You need to solve 3 of them. So once you've played it twice, each guy twice, which is a few plays. That would be like 8 or 10 plays, which is a lot, really, for this kind of game. Then you're going to see all the mysteries. So it would be like, why would I play this guy again? Because we've played him twice. We've seen, all 4 of the mysteries. But the mysteries are going to interact differently based on some of the other encounters. So like I was saying, when you get the more plays and you get a lot more of those different interactions, like, oh, this time, we had the epic monster come out, and then the last game we didn't have any, and we really had to team up. And that's the other thing I want to mention is having those harder monsters is a lot more fun because you do a lot more teamwork. The first game was like we were just kind of spread out doing our own thing, except at the very end where we kind of wanted to double up and get the clue tokens, which we could turn into Eldritch tokens and to solve the mystery. So the teamwork is kind of fleeting, few and far between. But I think as you add more players as well, it's going to up the overall general difficulty of the amount of stuff that comes out, so there'll be a lot more teamwork there. And I don't know what the sweet spot is. I only played the thing twice. My guess is 8 is probably too many. I've heard a lot of people say never ever play Arkham Horror with probably more than 4 or so, I think is the idea. Now this one I think you could get away with playing probably 6. I mean, I'm just kind of giving you a hunch there. 8, I mean, you could play 8. I mean, it's gonna take a long time. I don't think that necessarily means it's bad with 8. It just means it's long with 8. I don't know that I would want to do that though. You're not going to lose any more table space. It does take up a fair chunk of table space. But I think you want more than 2 or 3 players. I'd say probably in the 4 or 5 range, because then you got a lot of stuff happening on the board. You know, when you have less players, not a lot of stuff is coming out, and so it's not as chaotic. And so I think the chaos is really part of the theme. So I think you want to play with like 4 or 5 people to get a lot of things going on, get a lot of that sort of table discussion. Because we're playing it with like 2 and then 3. It's like, okay, you go do that, we don't even have to really talk to each other. You know, you're just like, okay, you're on that side of the board, you go do this, and then, oh, I got an ability that can heal you, or I can send an item your way, or I can move you on my turn, and stuff like that. I really do like how when the investigators die, and then you're still in the game. Now you can't get eliminated if the old one wakes up, and then your guy dies, and then you get eliminated, but the game's like right at the end anyway, so maybe a turn or 2, I guess, you'd be out of the game, but you'd still be interested in watching for sure. But I like that they die. You can go have an encounter with them. You know, they've gone insane. They're in a mental asylum or something like that, or trying to heal like a broken wound or something, and you can get their stuff or maybe not get their stuff and do different things like that. So that's cool, and that kind of gets back to adding into the narrative actually stretches across multiple plays. Because you kind of get to know the different old ones, the different investigators, the different encounters and the locations on the board and things like that. So you kind of get to know the world over the course of multiple plays. And it's like these multiple attempts of these old ones kind of coming up, and you know, Cthulhu's come up again, he's trying to come up again, or now he's sending one of his, you know, lesser minions to come up. So that's kind of interesting because it kind of plays out as like a campaign game in that sense. So that's pretty cool. I like that aspect of it, and that's something that, you know, I did not expect it to kind of work out that way. So anyway, so it was kind of an abortive, you know, first play, and then the second play. Now I'm really starting to get into it, and it does play very streamlined. You take your 2 quick actions, and then you just do your stuff. And if anything, it's a little lacking on the strategy normally for my taste, but I'm kind of enjoying exploring this world for the first time. So that's kind of outweighing that, because it's just a lot of dice rolling. Not a lot of dice rolling, but that's all you kind of do is roll dice. But yeah, it's a cool game. So I think if you like Arkham Horror, I don't know if you should get this, probably. I mean, it plays quicker, I guess. I never played Arkham Horror. But I think if you were interested in that, but you were kind of intimidated by Arkham Horror, which is kind of about where I was, then I would definitely get this one. And I would just say, my recommendation would be to play this with a decent sized group of people that are, you know, have the right attitude and, you know, want to engage in this thematically with the chaos and everything. So anyway, that's Eldritch Horror, kind of my thoughts on it. And I definitely, you know, it's going to be staying in my collection because it's something, a world I want to, you know, go back to and reinvestigate and have fun with. So it is swingy. So I'm, you know, part of me is like, ooh, I hope we don't have a game like that first one where it's just kind of, that was a waste of an hour and a half. But you know, maybe we'll just play against Cthulhu every time or something. Or we can tweak the, you know, the Mythos deck to be hard. So let's just make it hard every time and see how that goes. So there's some, you know, configurability here for your experience. So anyway, Eldritch Horror, thanks.